Picture a stack of the most incredibly mundane paperwork you can possibly imagine, just a 12-page PDF ledger.
Oh, yeah. The kind of thing most people would immediately just toss in the recycling bin.
Exactly, just rows and rows of vendor names, check numbers, line item descriptions, and dollar amounts. Specifically, we have our hands on the municipal bills list from Newtown Township, Pennsylvania. And this is dated Wednesday, May 27th, 2026.
Right.
The total expenditure across all these checks for that 2-week period, $145,733.15.
That is a very specific, very large number.
It is, yeah. But listen, if you're tuning into this deep dive today, we aren't here to do accounting. We are here to play detective. We're going to use this 12-page ledger as like a financial X-ray.
I like that analogy.
Right. Because if you want to know what a community actually is, what it values, and what keeps it from, just descending into chaos, you don't read its promotional brochures. You look at where it bleeds cash over a random 2-week period.
Yeah, you follow the money.
Exactly. So by unpacking the highly specific items these checks are paying for, we can reconstruct the complex, surprisingly high-tech, and sometimes genuinely hilarious daily reality of an entire town.
It's arguably the most honest portrait of a society you can find, honestly. A municipal budget is simply a community's core values and, well, its primary fears, translated into dollars and cents.
Yeah.
It strips away all the political rhetoric and tells you exactly what it physically takes to keep the lights on, the water running, and the citizens engaged. It's essentially a behavioral footprint of tens of thousands of people distilled into a spreadsheet.
And keeping the lights on is quite literally where the bulk of this money goes. Because before a town can do anything remotely interesting or, community-focused, it has to physically function.
Absolutely. The groundwork has to be there.
Right. And to see that, we have to look at the general fund. For the listeners, think of the general fund as the town's primary checking account for daily survival. It's separate from dedicated savings accounts or capital projects.
Just the day-to-day operations.
Exactly. And during this specific 2-week period, the general fund saw over $102,000 go out the door. The utility footprint alone is staggering. Pico Energy Company billed the town $19,554.12.
Wow.
And get this, out of that $19,000, $13,192.96 was dedicated solely to streetlights.
Over 13 grand. Just for the streetlights.
Just for streetlights. Plus, power for something called the pole barn, the historic schoolhouse, and all the traffic signals.
We take the physical infrastructure of our lives entirely for granted until the exact moment it fails.
Oh, 100%.
When you see a $13,000 line item for streetlights, you aren't just looking at a massive electricity bill. You're looking at the price of nighttime commerce. You are looking at pedestrian safety, so a resident walking their dog at 9 p.m. doesn't get hit by a car. You're looking at a highly effective, passive form of crime deterrence. That check is quite literally the cost of keeping the dark at bay for an entire population.
And that physical maintenance extends right down into the dirt, too. We see the literal groundwork of the town in these pages. There's a check to Mini Concrete for a product called slurry mix.
Slurry mix, that sounds messy.
Yeah, it does. They needed it for inlet rebuilds and to fix a sinkhole restoration at 23 Friends Lane. The total for that slurry mix was over $1,800.
That's a lot of mix.
Right, and Eureka Stone Quarry also got a check for stone used for inlet backfill. Then you look at the vehicle maintenance, which honestly, it reads like a never-ending war of attrition.
Oh, I'm sure.
Napa Auto Parts and Creighton's Auto Repair are constantly servicing the town's fleet, doing alignments, replacing brake calipers, swapping out heavy-duty batteries. My favorite detail, though, is a $700 check to Winter Equipment Company for snowplow blade extenders.
Wait, in May?
Yes. Keep in mind, this ledger is dated May 27th. People are opening their backyard swimming pools, and the Public Works Department is buying snowplow parts.
Okay, let's unpack this. It feels like running a town is just maintaining a giant, incredibly needy house where you constantly have to buy things like slurry mix.
That's a great way to put it.
We see dozens of line items just for routine truck maintenance, alignments, batteries. Is the physical reality of local government just an endless losing battle against vehicular wear and tear and potholes.
Well, that snowplow purchase is actually a perfect example of competent local governance.
Really? How so?
Because if a public works director tries to buy plow blades in November, they're competing with every other municipality in the region. They're dealing with supply chain bottlenecks, and they're paying a massive premium.
Oh, right. Supply and demand.
Exactly. Buying them in May saves the taxpayer money. But more broadly, what you are observing with the slurry mix and the brake calipers is this concept we call municipal friction.
Municipal friction. Like the idea that the town is essentially eating itself every day. Exactly. Every single day. The physical environment, the weather, and the citizens themselves are degrading the town's infrastructure. Every delivery truck that rolls over a street creates friction.
Right. Grinding down the asphalt.
Yeah. And every heavy rainstorm that rushes into a storm drain erodes the concrete holding it together. Local government is basically in a constant state of managed decay.
Managed decay. I love that phrase.
So if you are a listener looking at your own rising property tax bill and wondering where the money goes, it goes toward fighting this friction.
Yeah.
Because if you don't buy the $1,800 slurry mix today, the sinkhole at 23 Friends Lane expands.
And it gets way worse.
Right. It swallows a resident sedan next month, and suddenly the town is facing a multi-million-dollar liability lawsuit.
Wow. So all of these checks for stone backfill and truck alignments are preventative measures. They're the invisible labor and materials that stop the grid from grinding to a halt. But, if all that slurry mix and off-season plow prep actually works, you just end up with an empty functioning grid. What brings people out of their houses to actually use that grid?
That is the big question.
And that's where we shift from the concrete of the general fund to the community itself. Looking at the parks and recreation spending, and the spending here is remarkably specific. It doesn't look like a traditional government ledger. It reads more like the activity itinerary for a luxury cruise ship.
Oh, the recreation budget is always where the distinct personality of a township bleeds through the accounting codes. It's fascinating.
It really is. They are investing heavily in youth programs. We see over $7,300 going to an organization called Jumpstart Sports for T-Ball and a program delightfully named Hummingbird Soccer.
Hummingbird soccer.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah. Then there's the food budget. A $2,500 check was paid to Newtown Pizza to provide a weekly slice for Camp Newtown and Adventure Camp. They're dropping $2,500 just on camp pizza.
You can almost smell the sunscreen and the pepperoni looking at that line item.
Definitely.
It is a direct investment in core childhood memories for the town's youth, which, believe it or not, builds long-term civic attachment.
Okay, the youth spending makes tradition sense. But then we get to the adult programming. We have a reissued check to an Eileen Bowden for $212.80.
Yep. What's the description on that one?
It simply reads Namaasta Goat Yoga. Like 3 A's.
Goat yoga.
Yes. And we have Leigh Farello being paid $205 to teach gyotaku, which is the traditional Japanese art of fish printing.
Just printing.
Yeah, and the ledger specifically notes there were 6 participants. Just 6. We also see instructor expenses for La Blast, which is a dance fitness program, alongside skateboarding lessons, jiu-jitsu, and line dancing. I mean, 100 years ago, a town paved the roads, put out fires, and arrested criminals. Now they're facilitating fish printing for 6 people. Why is a municipality funding goat yoga and fish printing instead of just mowing the grass at the park? Is this a core function of government?
What's fascinating here is that it speaks directly to the evolution of what we expect from our local government, largely driven by a massive shift in public health.
Public health, really?
Oh, absolutely. We live in an era of unprecedented digital connection, yet we are facing a documented severe epidemic of physical isolation and loneliness. A modern municipality is increasingly expected to act as an engine for socialization.
I see where you're going. Funding a class for just 6 people doing gyotaku seems incredibly niche, almost wasteful on the surface, but those 6 people are gathering in a physical room, interacting, forming a micro-community.
Precisely. That $200 check to the fish printing instructor is actually a highly strategic, cost-effective public health intervention.
Wow, I never thought of it like that.
When citizens interact in these low-stakes, joyful environments, they build bonds. They become neighbors who look out for each other. It is exponentially cheaper for a town to fund a goat yoga class that keeps a dozen adults physically and socially active than it is for the broader county or state to deal with the cascading healthcare and social service costs of an isolated, aging, and depressed population.
That makes perfect sense. The return on investment for a $200 art class is community resilience.
Exactly.
But of course, the moment you put all these people together, kids running around playing hummingbird soccer, adults doing line dancing, thousands of people driving to Amma's Indian cuisine under those $13,000 streetlights, you inherently increase risk.
You do. People gather. Things happen.
People get hurt.
Yeah.
Weather happens. Which brings the town safety net into focus.
Yeah.
Transitioning over to the Fire Protection Fund, which sits at $11,689, and the police expenditures, we see the intense financial reality of preparing for the worst.
Yeah, the physical infrastructure and the social programming mean absolutely nothing without the security apparatus to protect them.
Let's look at the police side first. We see significant investments in training, alongside the inevitable costs of having a fleet of vehicles patrolling 24/7.
Right, the friction we talked about.
Exactly. There are two distinct claims paid out to car star Fred Beans, an auto repair shop, to fix a police vehicle. Claims A26470153345 and A26470153374 cost the town over $6,200 in repairs.
That's a hefty repair bill.
It is. But right alongside that, there is a $600 payment to the Bucks County Police Association for instructor development training for two specific officers, Azara and Turpin. They're spending money to teach their own officers how to be teachers.
That is a crucial line item. By sending Azara and Turpin to instructor development, the town is internalizing its expertise.
Oh, instead of paying outsiders.
Right. Instead of paying outside consultants thousands of dollars every year to train the broader force on new tactics or legal updates, they are building internal leadership. It pays dividends over the next decade.
And then there's the fire preparedness spending. Here's where it gets really interesting. Because you have this tension between everyday bureaucracy and extreme danger.
Oh, the contrast is stark.
Very. On one hand, we have the very mundane safety nets. There's an $8,730 payment to Standard Insurance Company for life, short-term, and long-term disability policies for the town staff. It's the boring, essential paperwork of running an organization.
The necessary evil of HR.
Right. But right next to it, we have an invoice from All Hands Fire Equipment, LLC for $790. The description is a swift water rescue training class for two responders, Martindale and Katz.
Swift water rescue, that is intense.
Yeah. And then we look at the physical gear. Whitmer Public Safety Group received over $6,300 to equip these responders, and the ledger is incredibly granular.
Granular how?
It lists a coat, pants, and boots specifically sized and ordered for Fleischer. It lists updated nameplates for FF Cox-Higgins. They are spending over $5,000 just to clothe a single firefighter so they can survive walking into a burning building. My question is, are they preparing for a highly specific local threat, like a raging river, or is this just the baseline level of superhero-level preparedness required for modern emergency services?
It's the latter, but this is where we see the concept of municipal risk pooling in action.
Risk pooling? How so? Because outfitting just two guys for swift water rescue in a town of tens of thousands seems like a very narrow investment.
It is narrow, but that is exactly how risk pooling functions. The vast majority of the residents in Newtown will never need to be pulled out of a raging flooded river.
Right, hopefully not.
But the statistical probability that someone in the region will need it during a catastrophic flash flood is high. So the thousands of taxpayers collectively pool their money to highly train and equip just Martindale and Katz. Those two responders become a hyper-specialized insurance policy for the entire geographic area.
That makes the $5,000 suit for Fleischer much easier to contextualize. It's not just buying clothes, it's buying a localized capability.
Exactly. And the capability isn't just physical anymore. Did you happen to see the software charges?
Oh, actually, yeah. I noticed a $263 payment to ESO Solutions for a fire data API. I assume we're talking about an application programming interface here.
That's right.
That implies the fire department isn't just sitting in the station waiting for a bell to ring. They're actively data mining their own town.
That is exactly what they are doing. Modern emergency response is intensely data-driven. An API allows different software systems to talk to each other in real time.
So what kind of data is a local fire department pulling through an ATI?
Well, they could be integrating county dispatch data with their own incident density maps. This allows them to predict which neighborhoods have the highest volume of medical calls and specific times of day so they can pre-position resources.
Oh, wow. That's smart.
Or Even more critically, they might be pulling building material data from the town's zoning and construction permits.
Wait, why building materials?
If a fire breaks out in a new subdivision built with lightweight wood trusses, which, by the way, burn and collapse much faster than older, solid timber, the API ensures that structural data is instantly beamed to the mobile data terminals in the fire engines while they're en route.
So they know what they're walking into.
Exactly. The responders know the roof might collapse before they even arrive on the scene.
That is incredible. So the swiftwater rescue training, the high-tech gear for Fleischer, and the fire data API all work together. It isn't just a reactive system rushing to chaotic scenes. It is a proactive, highly specialized network designed to predict and mitigate a disaster before it fully unfolds.
Right. It's an entire ecosystem of safety.
No, funding these specialized data systems, the camp pizza budgets, and the endless tons of slurry mix, that requires constant revenue. The town has to expand its tax base, which means it has to allow new businesses and residential developments to be built.
Yes, growth is mandatory.
But if you just let developers build whatever they want, unchecked, just to chase that tax revenue, you end up with a disaster.
Oh, absolutely. You end up with collapsing infrastructure and massive liabilities.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps most complex piece of this municipal puzzle, the escrow fund.
Ah, the escrow fund.
In this 2-week period alone, the escrow fund had $31,571.26 moving through it. Looking at the ledger, it operates like a massive administrative holding pen.
That's a good way to describe it.
We see refunds going back to local businesses as their construction projects finally conclude. Emma's Indian Cuisine got a refund of almost $1,200. Piccolo Trattoria and PJ Wellahans also received checks. But then you look at the cost of the oversight generating those refunds, and it is astronomical.
The engineering and legal fees?
Yes. Remington and Vernick engineers billed the township over $20,000 just for reviewing developments. They were inspecting things like the Lafayette 1 sketch plan, a new pool being built at 9 Devon Road, and a project called the Newtown AOP.
It adds up fast.
And the lawyers are heavily involved, too. Kilkenny Law, LLC, billed over $2,000 for legal reviews of projects like the Overlook at Newtown and Duluth Construction at Glengarry. So what does this all mean? It looks like every time someone wants to build a pool or open a restaurant, engineers and lawyers get a massive cut. Does this kind of financial red tape strangle a town's growth, or is it absolutely necessary?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the escrow fund is entirely designed to protect you, the existing taxpayer, from the inherent risks of new development.
Wait, let me make sure I'm tracing this money correctly.
Right.
If Remington and Vernick are billing the town $20,000 for oversight, but that money is coming out of the escrow fund, the developer is essentially paying for the privilege of being policed by the town.
Exactly.
They put a massive deposit down up front. As they dig trenches and lay pipes, the town uses the developer's own deposit to pay the engineers to inspect the work and the lawyers to ensure the contracts are ironclad. It's like a firewall.
That is the exact mechanism. Let's walk through the life cycle of one of these projects. Say a developer wants to build the Overlook at Newtown subdivision.
Okay.
They bring in heavy machinery, they tear up a local road to connect water and sewer lines, and they start pouring foundations. 6 months in, the developer goes bankrupt, or they simply abandon the project.
Which happens all the time.
It does. If the town did not have this escrow system in place, the existing taxpayers of Newtown would be left holding the bag. The general fund would have to absorb the cost of repairing the torn-up road, securing the abandoned construction site, and dealing with the legal fallout.
And that would drain money directly away from the streetlights, the snowplow blades, and the swiftwater rescue training.
Precisely. By forcing the developer to place funds into escrow before they are ever allowed to break ground, the town ensures that growth pays for itself.
That makes total sense.
If the developer walks away, the town keeps the escrow money to fix the mess. If the project succeeds, as we see with Emma's Indian Cuisine or PJ Wellahans, the town deducts the costs of the engineers and lawyers and refunds the remainder. It is the vital financial mechanism that shields the community's existing resources from the risks of future expansion.
We have covered incredible ground today just by reading a town's receipts. We started with a dry 12-page PDF of checks. A document most people would immediately throw into the recycling
A
bin.
very boring document on the surface.
But we watched it transform into a living, breathing blueprint of Newtown Township. We saw the physical grinding labor of $1,800 slurry mixes and off-season snowplow blades constantly fighting the friction of the physical world.
The managed decay.
Right. We saw the joy of a community strategically funding $2.5 grand worth of camp pizza and, goats doing yoga to combat the isolation of modern life.
You can't forget the fish printing.
Never forget the fish printing. And we witnessed the intense bravery and preparation required for swift water rescue, backed up by the invisible data streams of a fire API. And finally, we saw the careful, meticulous legal guarding of the town's future through the firewall of the escrow fund.
It's a complete microcosm of human civilization, all neatly organized into general ledger account codes.
And if you are listening to this right now, whether you're on a commute, walking the dog, or sitting at your desk, remember that your town has a ledger exactly like this one.
Absolutely.
There's a spreadsheet out there silently documenting the pulse of your own community, capturing the true cost of every streetlight you drive under, every pothole you avoid, and every local event you attend.
We've seen how deeply a town's budget reflects the specific era it exists in. Right now, in 2026, we have line items for data APIs sitting right next to recycled plastic picnic tables and Japanese fish printing. It begs the question, what will a municipal bills list look like 50 years from now? When we look back at the budgets of 2076, will local governments be funding drone lane maintenance in the sky?
Oh, wow. Probably.
Will there be escrow funds set up for virtual reality park subscriptions? The ledger will always adapt to what society demands. Which leads to a much more personal thought.
What's that?
If someone looked at your own personal bank statement for the last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
just the raw data of where your money went without any context, what kind of town would they think you're running?
Wow. That is a thought to leave on. If you ever break a bone, you want an x-ray to give you a clean binary answer. But if you want to understand the muddy, complex, beautiful reality of how a community actually survives day in and day out, you just need to look at the bills.